We never lost a bomber. Not one. Colonel James Red Tail Washington said it with the quiet pride of someone who achieved the impossible. He was watching Captain Derek Stevens, 39 years old, modern Air Force fighter pilot, demonstrate his squadron's latest F-35 Lightning II capabilities, 5th-generation stealth, advanced avionics, and 95% mission success rate in contested airspace. Derek was showing combat footage of modern air superiority missions while explaining how modern fighter technology has revolutionized air combat effectiveness beyond anything previous generations could achieve. When Derek asked the 99-year-old Tuskegee Airmen about the evolution of fighter escort tactics, expecting acknowledgement of technological progress, Colonel Washington said, "We never lost a bomber. Not one. 200 escort missions. Over 15,000 bomber sorties protected. Every single bomber we escorted, every crew, every plane, came home. No other fighter group in World War II could say that. Not one." Derek stopped mid-presentation. That's statistically impossible. With Luftwaffe fighters, flak, mechanical failures. It wasn't impossible, Washington interrupted quietly. It was necessary. Because we were black pilots in 1944. Flying for a country that didn't believe we could fly. Protecting white bomber crews who didn't want our protection. And the only way we could prove we deserved to be there was to be perfect. Not good. Not great. Perfect. His voice hardened. Your 95% success rate? We had 100%. Because 99% meant we failed. Meant they could say, see, black pilots can't do it. So we did what no other group did. We stayed with the bombers. Every single mission. No glory kills. No chasing enemy fighters for personal victory counts. We escorted. And we never lost a bomber. Washington looked at Derek. Your technology gives you 95%. Our determination gave us 100%. And that 100% changed history. In the corner, a young military historian, Major Lisa Chun, 34, aviation history specialist, had frozen. She'd heard of Colonel Washington's story, but never in this detail. Now she was recording every word. So was Derek. For the first time, his 95% success claim was facing perfect performance. How? Derek asked. How 100%? Every mission. Because we had no choice, Washington said. Let me tell you mission by mission. And you'll understand, we couldn't fail. July 1943, Washington began. 332nd Fighter Group. Tuskegee Airmen. First black fighter pilots in American history. Ramitelli Air Base, Italy. Washington looked at Lisa. And nobody wanted us. White bomber pilots, B-17 and B-24 crews, didn't trust us. Because we were black. And in 1943, they didn't believe black men could fly fighters. Our first escort mission, Washington described. July 28, 1943. Protecting B-17 bombers over Sicily. And bomber crews said on radio, they sent us black pilots? Where are the real fighters? Washington's voice broke. And I, 21 years old, in AP-40 Warhawk, heard it. And I knew, if we lose one bomber, just one, they'll say black pilots failed. And it's over. That mission, Washington continued. Luftwaffe Me-109s attacked. 6 enemy fighters. Diving on bombers. And we intercepted. Stopped them. Shot down 4 Me-109s. And every B-17. Everyone came home. October 1943, Washington said, we received P-51 Mustangs. Best American fighter. Long range. High speed. And we painted the tails red. Derek asked, why red? Identification, Washington explained. Bomber crews would see red tails and know Tuskegee Airmen here. Protection here. And over time, those red tails started meaning hope. But, Washington added, not at first. At first, bomber pilots tested us. On radio they'd say, red tails, leave your position. Chase enemy fighters, trying to get us to leave them. And Washington shook his head, never left. Ever. Because other fighter groups, They'd leave bombers to chase Luftwaffe. For personal victory counts. For glory. And bombers would be defenseless. Not us, Washington whispered. We stayed. Always. March 24th, 1944, Washington described. First escort mission over Berlin. Most dangerous. German heart. Heavy Luftwaffe resistance. 116 P-51s, Washington continued. Protecting 62 B-17 bombers. And Germans. Germans through everything. Focke-Wulf 190s. Messerschmitt 262 jets. Over 100 enemy fighters. Lisa leaned forward. What happened? We fought, Washington said simply. For hours. To Berlin. Over Berlin. From Berlin. And Luftwaffe attacked us. We attacked back. But never left the bombers. Shot down 13 Luftwaffe fighters. Washington smiled. Lost 3 P-51s. But 62 bombers. All came home. Every one. Washington's eyes filled. And that day, bomber pilots said on radio, thanks to Red Tails. You saved our lives. First time they thanked us. April 1944, Washington said. Bomber groups started requesting us. On radio saying, we want Red Tails escort. Because they knew, we don't lose. April 15th, Washington described. Plosti oil refineries mission. Romania. Heaviest anti-aircraft defense in Europe. 8 bomber groups expecting losses. And we protect them. Flak fire. Washington whispered, everywhere. Sky black with explosion clouds. B-17s taking damage. Engines on fire. But we stay with them. Protect damaged bombers. The slow ones. 3 B-17s heavily damaged. Washington continued. Slow. Low. Easy targets. And Luftwaffe attacked. To finish them. And we intercepted. 6 P-51s. Against 20 Mi-109s. Derek asked, how did you survive? Determination, Washington answered. Those bombers couldn't fall. Because if they fell, we failed. So we fought. 3 P-51s damaged. But 20 Mi-109s, we shot down 5. Rest fled. And 3 B-17s came home. Crews lived. June 1944, Washington said. 15th Air Force Commander, General Nathan Twining, called us and said, 332nd Fighter Group, only group never lost bomber. How do you do it? Washington smiled. And I said, sir, we stay? Never leave. Victory count doesn't matter. Mission matters. And General, Washington described, said other groups should learn. But you're black pilots. And some people won't listen. And I knew what he meant. But, Washington added, bomber crews listened. Because they knew truth. If Red Tails are with you, you're coming home. August 12, 1944, Washington turned serious. Southern France mission. 120 B-17s. Our biggest escort mission. And Luftwaffe. Luftwaffe made last major stand. 160 fighters. Coordinated attack. We had 50 P-51s, Washington described. Against 160. 3-1. And bombers, defenseless. Lisa held her breath. What did you do? We fought. Washington said simply. Every P-51 faced 4, 5, 6 Luftwaffe fighters. And we knew, one bomber gets through, perfect record ends. 2 hours combat, Washington whispered. Shot down 23 Luftwaffe. Lost 7 P-51s. Lost my friends. But 120 bombers. All came home. Washington cried. And that night, we went to bomber base. Crews applauded us. White men. Applauding black pilots. And one said, you saved my life. I don't care about your color. You're a hero. June 1945, Washington said, final mission. Germany defeated. But Japan continuing. And they told us, you're going Pacific. But, Washington smiled, atomic bomb. August 1945. War ended. And we came home. 200 escort missions, Washington counted. Over 15,000 bomber sorties. And 0 losses. 100% record. Only group in World War II. Washington looked at Derek. Your 95% success rate is technology. Our 100% was determination. Because we couldn't fail. A race depended on it. But, Washington added, that record created change. 1948, President Truman desegregated military. Because Tuskegee Airmen proved, black men are as good as white men. Maybe sometimes better. Derek knelt, hugged Washington. You're a hero. No, Washington shook his head. I'm a pilot. I did my job. But 7 friends, lost August 1944, they're heroes. They died protecting bombers. The following month, Derek announced a new program, Perfect Mission Doctrine, training on mission excellence, inspired by Tuskegee Airmen. Colonel James Redtail Washington passed away 2 years later at 101. Beside a P-51 Mustang model, red-tailed. Monument erected. Colonel James Redtail Washington 1922 to 2046 Tuskegee Airmen 200 missions. 15,000 plus bombers protected. 0 lost excellence was our only option. Now it's your turn. This story of Colonel James Redtail Washington confronts us with the ultimate question about performance under pressure. What does perfect performance mean when everything depends on it? When 99% success means total failure? When one mistake, just one, proves your entire race can't do it? What does 100% mean when 99% means failure? The Tuskegee Airmen were the first black fighter pilots in American military history. Trained at Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama during a time when the U.S. military was segregated and most Americans, including military leadership, believed black men lacked the intelligence, reflexes, and courage to fly combat aircraft. They were an experiment, and the experiment was designed expecting them to fail. But they didn't fail. They did something no other fighter group in World War II achieved. They never lost a single bomber under their escort. 200 missions. Over 15,000 bomber sorties protected. 0 losses. 100% success rate. The only fighter group with a perfect record. How? The answer reveals something profound about what humans can achieve when failure isn't an option. Other fighter groups, white fighter groups with no additional pressure beyond combat itself, had roughly 90 to 92% success rates protecting bombers. Good performance by any measure. But Tuskegee Airmen knew 90% wasn't enough. Because when a white fighter group lost bombers, it was battlefield statistics. When Tuskegee Airmen lost bombers, it was proof that black pilots weren't capable. One failure would be used to justify ending the entire program and preventing future black pilots from ever flying. So they created a tactical doctrine other groups didn't follow: never leave the bombers. Other fighter groups would abandon bomber formations to chase enemy fighters, building personal victory counts, achieving glory, pursuing Luftwaffe aces. But every time they left, bombers became vulnerable. Tuskegee Airmen never left. Not once. They stayed in formation, sacrificing personal glory for mission success. Protecting the bombers was the only objective that mattered. March 24, 1944, the mission over Berlin that Washington described was one of the most dangerous of the war. Over 100 Luftwaffe fighters attacked the formation. Tuskegee Airmen shot down 13 enemy aircraft while losing only 3 P-51s. But more importantly, all 62 bombers came home. Every crew member survived. When bomber pilots landed and saw those red tails, many of them, white men who had initially resisted black escort pilots, personally thanked the Tuskegee Airmen for saving their lives. Prejudice met reality, and reality won. August 12, 1944, Washington's greatest test, was even more extreme. 160 Luftwaffe fighters in a coordinated attack against 120 bombers protected by 50 P-51s. 3-to-1 odds. 2 hours of continuous air combat. Tuskegee Airmen shot down 23 enemy fighters and lost 7 P-51s, including pilots who were Washington's friends. But every single bomber survived. The perfect record held. That perfect record had consequences far beyond World War II. When President Truman ordered military desegregation in 1948, one of the key arguments was the Tuskegee Airmen proved black servicemen can perform at the highest level. Their 100% success rate became evidence that segregation was based on prejudice, not capability. One fighter group's perfect performance helped end military segregation and contributed to the broader civil rights movement. But the personal cost was immense. Washington and his fellow pilots carried the weight of representing an entire race every single mission. One mistake, one lost bomber, one moment of imperfection, and they would be used as evidence to deny opportunities to millions of Black Americans for generations. That's a pressure no white pilot ever faced. They had to be perfect when perfection should have been impossible. Tell us in the comments below. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to represent more than just yourself? Where your performance would be used to judge an entire group? Where 99% success meant total failure? These questions matter in a world where some people still face different standards based on race, gender, or background. And if this story moved you, hit that like button to honor Colonel Washington and all Tuskegee Airmen. Subscribe to Echoes of Valor for more stories about excellence under impossible pressure. Share with someone who needs to remember that determination can achieve what technology alone cannot. We'll see you in the next story.